So we'll slow everything down to half speed, get rid of the sound. We'll watch it through a little bit later on and completely understand exactly how to get through this place. So basically, starting on the main straight here, you want to get a nice solid run onto the straight to start your lap. Coming down into turn 1, it's quite a banked corner, so really important to carry a decent amount of speed into the corner. For me, my braking is just after the 100 meter board. It feels as though it's between the 100 and this telegraph pole here on the right. So quite a it's relatively late. It feels really early actually for me from the driver's seat. But when you think about it, how fast the car's actually going, this is quite a late braking zone into the corner, and you can see the brake trace is up around the 75-80% mark with the master cylinder that I was using, which is a little bit smaller than what we've seen traditionally in my data packs, with 23.8 on the front, 20.6 on the rear. So coming into this corner, and quite a big brake application initially, and holding that pressure before trail braking in, and the turn-in point is just after the 50 meter board, or around about the, well actually if we just come back a little bit, 50 meter board is here, so it's between the 50 and the telegraph pole. It's closer to the telegraph pole however, so just before that one, turn it in and trail that brake right nicely into the apex there. Careful not to lock an inside front too much, it will lift up, so that's why that trail brake is so important to make sure that you don't carry too much brake pressure, lock up and run wide. Get it in nice and close to the inside curb. You can use a little bit of it if you want, and pick the throttle up from the halfway point in the corner here, and nice and smoothly open the steering. Use all of the available exit road there, including that little green concrete patch. So you want to go right out to the edge there. Basically give yourself as much mid-corner speed as what you can to carry the momentum up the straight, and allow yourself to get the best run up the mountain possible here on Mountain Straight. Up this one, it's just a matter of getting as close to the rev limiter as you can without actually snagging it and costing yourself momentum. It'll be a 5th gear run up here, and you'll be looking for the 100 meter board on the left hand side of the track, and that's going to be a braking marker for you that you're going to use. This one here on the left. So getting to that 100 meter board and on the brakes around about where that board starts. You can see there just before it I'm on the brakes, but essentially it's the 100 meter board. Big brake application, very steep uphill run into turn 2 here at Griffin's Bend. So you can really carry a lot of speed into this corner. It's a lot of grip on your side. Turn it in quite early. Again, trail that brake nicely into the apex. Really important to do that to keep the weight across the nose. 3rd gear, hook it in nicely into the curb. So into turn 2, it's really important to make sure that you get the car as close to the red and white curbing as you can on that white line without actually hitting the curb, because all that camber you've got here and banking and uphill run all goes away if you pick the car up onto 2 wheels on the curb there. It just slides off the curb and you lose so much time. So really important to get close to that curb. Also note how early I pick the throttle up here. So in the throttle really early, hugging around the curb, open the steering up for the exit. Try not to make any jittery movements on the steering wheel through the exit there. It's really important to keep the car nice and stable through that corner to ensure you don't get any oversteer. So flat out up the hill into the cutting here, and starting on the right hand side of the road, 4th gear, turning quite early in the kink, and I bleed off the throttle just a little bit before I transition the weight forward onto the front tyres for the braking zone. It's quite a delicate place in coming into the cutting, because it's very easy to lock a tyre here, very easy to overrun it. You can either lock fronts or rears, so it's really challenging to get in here and have the car stable during the braking zone. So lifting off and then transitioning onto the brake pedal just around the kink here. 3rd gear down to 2nd gear. Be very careful with how you apply the brake. I've actually got a little bit of inside front locking, and it was looking like it was going to run wide. So on this particular lap, I actually used 1st gear to bring the car the speed down so that I could make sure I could get into the apex. It's absolutely critical to get in close to this wall here on the inside. 2nd gear, hug this wall as tight as you can. I'm just going to show this from the outside because it's absolutely critical to get in close to the wall, and I just want to show what you should be looking for. So coming into this one and down the gears there, See a little brake lock up just there, a little puff of smoke just appears just there, a little puff of smoke, and basically that was when I decided to use first gear. Get it in there, second gear for the exit, pick the throttle up really early and smoothly on the way out, and you can see there I actually grazed the fence with the car. There was no 0x, believe it or not, on this one, but obviously a little bit too tight, but got away with it. But you want to get in nice and close to that wall there. Out the other side, exit around about mid-track, so coming out of the corner there, about mid-track here. If you go too far out to the right, it goes off camber out towards the fence, and you can really find yourself having a big oversteer moment there when you really don't need to. So coming out nice and smoothly, keep the revs up, drive in a straight line up the hill, past the driveway here, and ensure that you go across this crest straight. I rev it out in second. I don't short shift to third, but I do rev it out in second there. Go across it as straight as you can, a little throttle lift over the crest to make sure you don't flare the rears up, and then back in the throttle, third gear on the run up to the Fujitsu bend here. And just, you often refer to this as going under the tree. So you see the trees here on the left, that's pretty much your turning point into the Fujitsu bridge here, or signage here. Big throttle lift, no brake application. You're better off just with the throttle lift. Manage that turn with the throttle. Just graze the curb on the inside. Then full throttle out the other side and use the outside curb as a motocross berm to ensure that you basically it stops you hitting the fence. So you can really arrest the slide, arrest the speed of the car on that curb, and straighten yourself up for a run here into metal grate. So through the Etihad section, and really important to set yourself up just in this phase here to go across this brow or this crest in the road in the middle of the track. So if you go in here too shallow, you tighten the run through metal grate, and it makes it really hard to turn the car. If you run too wide, however, you don't give yourself enough track, but when you go across this crest and the front wheels lift up, basically you understeer out there into the fence at metal grate. So really important to come down here in the middle of the track. The other thing that I do is as the load comes off the front tyres and it's going to start to compress, I lift off the throttle. I don't utilise the brake here. Transfer some weight onto the front just by lifting, and then I gradually, as the front bites there through the grate section, and that front right's completely loaded, I've got my turn back. So now I can pick the throttle up, and I use the throttle to brush past this curb. I induce a little bit of understeer by using the throttle here, and just hug that curb nicely, and then get to full throttle, running it out to the outside of the track on the exit. So really important to recognize this relationship here. If you can avoid using the brakes, do it. Try to get through here with just a lift and coast, and then pick the throttle up smoothly. The car just flows heaps better when you do it that way, and it's easier to drive over a race run as well as being fast. So really important into McPhillamy Park as well to run into this section, starting from as wide as what you can, out with basically your driver's side mirror is going to be grazing the fence. And use this marshal point and the curbing here on the right as your turn-in marker. So see, just before that there, I begin to turn the car, and I'm turning it in at full throttle. And it's not until I get to the crest on the hill that I lift off. And I lift off and don't utilize the brake. Again, I just lift and coast over the hill there, wait for the car to get the grip back, and as that front end responds and grips up, I pick the throttle up through the other side there, nice and smoothly, getting it out to the outside curb there, and that curb is the thing that keeps me on the track. But the most important part of McPhillamy Park is to get the car turned in quite early before the crest, because once you crest that hill, you can see it understeering there, and you got to wait for it. So if you miss the turning point, you just have to wait forever to get back to the throttle. Brush the curb on the inside, use that outside curb like I mentioned, and out of McPhillamy into Skyline under the Coates Hire Bridge, get it back to the left-hand side of the road. You'll be on the rev limiter here at 222 kilometers an hour in fourth gear before lifting off and braking, and you utilize the brake here to make sure that you turn the car in. So as you're going across the crest at Skyline, obviously the car's going to get light, and basically from there you're going to be expecting a lot of understeer, is what I'm trying to say. So you got to utilize the brake here, not only to slow the car down, but also to turn the car in. So try to use that brake just to turn it over the crest there. You want to hug that outside fence as closely as you can here on the right. And then get the car straight. A big brake application in a straight line there while you've got the thing going. I've made a couple downshifts already. I'm already down to second gear. I'm using a lot of engine brake here. In the race, you might want to delay those down changes a little bit more. In a qualifying scenario, it can help to get those gears quite early. As I go across the curb, I've got to modulate that brake before the car landing and then basically getting hard on it one more time before coasting through the right-hander here with no throttle, no brake, nice and close to the wall on the right, hugging that curbing around. Little dab of throttle, little dab of brake to arrest the speed into the dipper. Turn it in really, really early. So see, I'm hugging this wall around to basically where the curb ends here on the right-hand side and then turning it into the Cooper's dipper. So turn it in at the top of the hill here before the road falls away. Kind of like McPhillamy Park, where if you don't turn it in early enough, you just get understeer down the hill here and you miss the corner and your exit is compromised. So turn it in really early before you get there, and you want to hug that Cooper's fence on the inside as closely as you can. And as it comes down the hill, it compresses here. So once the car lands and compresses, you can really nail the throttle and it grips up. As it decompresses or rebounds though, be careful of the wheel spin that you'll get. So see, it compresses and then slides, and just got to manage that exit as best as what you can. Flat out down the S's here into Forest Elbow and flat out run third gear. And again, much like Skyline, you got to manage your brake here quite effectively to see the waviness of the braking. And that's very deliberate. So while we're going in a fairly straight line here, you can use a bit more pressure. But as you hug it around the fence here, you've got to modulate it. Otherwise, you're going to lock up. Hug it around the fence. And then as you go down the hill and turning, you need to... Basically, the car's really light here. It doesn't have a lot of braking performance. And as it settles down in a straight line, you can use a bit more braking and get the thing stopped. I'm opting to use first gear down here as well. So I'm first gear, turning in early, using the engine brake along with the trail braking there to keep the car in check and keep the apex. And I'm aiming for the inside Falcon tyres concrete wall here, where it's straight in this section and then it juts out and gets tighter. That's my clipping point there, where the wall kind of juts out. That's the point I want to be at the closest to the fence, because that's where I'm going to start nailing the throttle and really getting second gear and getting off this corner as straight as I can. So see there, if we just play that through, come down here, brake in a straight line as efficiently as I can, get down to first gear, get it into the curbing there, or the wall as close as I can. First gear until I'm happy with the turn, then I pull second and I pick the throttle up quite aggressively onto the straight, running it right out to the outside fence there, making sure that we basically extend the run onto Conrod Straight to make it as long as what you possibly can. Obviously, it's a very important exit from Forest Elbow to make sure that you can maximise your top end speed down here, especially in the races as well. This is going to be one of the key places that you're going to be able to pass. This track is difficult to overtake, so as a driver on the offensive, you want to make this straight work for you with a big draft to have a look into the chase or the final corner at Murray's, or you're going to want a good exit to defend as well. So it's very important in the race to get that one right. Coming into the chase, and use all the available runoff on the turn-in phase here. Go to the left and open your run up into the kink. Get as close to the curbing as you can without actually hitting it, but full throttle through the chase there. You get to about 287 kilometers an hour before you put your foot on the brake pedal, and that's going to be at around about 175 meters. So you can see there's a 200 meter board back here somewhere, and there's a 150 board just down here. It's pretty much between those boards is where you're going to commit to the brake, and you're going to commit to it hard. So big brake application, up around 90 to 95% brake pressure, and really stand the thing on its nose. Get the bulk of the braking done in a straight line before turning in. You can see the 50 meter board there, so turning in around about 25-30 meters away from the corner, and trail that brake down really smoothly into the apex. Make sure you don't take any inside curb there. I tend to, on this setup, I'm finding it's best to go around it. It's not the end of the world if you use it, but it's just harder to get the power down out the other side. Pick the throttle up smoothly in second gear, full throttle briefly there before a short shift to third, and on that short shift, it feels like it wants to clutch kick it sideways, so you got to manage the throttle there. Don't use the curbing on the right. Manage the slide out to the outside and use that outside curb like a motocross berm. It actually keeps you on the track there when you go out there. Flat out to Murray's corner to finish the lap, and there's some little, just here, there's some little marks on the track, little stains on the track. Around that one, just there, you can see the end of it. That's my braking point. It's pretty much in line with the 100 meter board. So hard on the brakes around about that phase. Big brake application before turning in with a lot of trail. So you see there, trail that brake down to 0 on turn in, second gear, and make sure that you don't use the inside curb. It upsets the car immensely. And pick the throttle up nice and smoothly onto the straight. Try not to slide. Use that outside curb like a motocross berm again. It helps to keep the car on the track, and basically you can get to the throttle a touch earlier by using more track there. So pick the throttle up nice and gently. Car had a little slide for me there, but saved by getting it up onto the curb. And that's a one lap run of Mount Panorama circuit at Bathurst. And basically we're all going to have a lot more to do of that. So 6.2 kilometers of pure mayhem in the cockpit a lot of the time around here. So it's really about slowing it down as much as you can in your brain to make sure that the car's going as fast as it can. So quite often the fastest laps in this car are the smoothest and most precise laps. So really, really important, particularly over the top of the mountain, to remember the smoothness element. Don't use the brake unless you need to. You should be able to use a throttle lift, and that's it. The fastest drivers around here are the ones who can coast the car and flow the car over the bumps and crests and elevation changes and that type of thing. If you're finding you're rushing the car and the car's hard to drive, you're probably overdriving it. You need to just peg it back a notch and try to drive it a bit smoother, because that's how the lap time will come. We'll have a look at this one in full speed with some sound to see how we navigate the lap at Bathurst. So we'll just head back to the start here and we'll watch it through. So that is a lap of Mount Panorama Circuit in the Holden ZB Commodore to kick off 2021 Season 4. And it's not only that, it's the biggest race of the year for the Australian community, with several Bathurst 1000s taking place in the next week or month, really. So enjoy your racing here. If you've got any questions about the data pack or why I do things a certain way or want me to elaborate, just get in touch and I'll answer that as best as possible. You can get in touch via Virtual Racing School's website on the contact form. You can also find me on the VRS Discord or any social media channels under Madison Down on Instagram, Facebook, etc. And I'll answer as best as I can. That's probably the most enjoyable way to kick off a season, starting with the big one. So enjoy your racing, and I'll chat to you for next week's tutorial.